1841, the slave who stitched his master's eyes open. Cursed archive warning. 3 researchers who investigated this case developed chronic insomnia and reported seeing stitched eyes in their peripheral vision. Without your immediate engagement, algorithms ensure that disturbing historical content like this vanishes from recommendations forever. This may be your only chance to discover secrets that have haunted investigators for generations. Chronicle of Forbidden Mysteries. Special Haunted Edition, 1841. Terrifying discovery reveals experiment that defies human nature. Exclusive investigation exposes medical conspiracy that haunts to this day. Narrated by Dr. Cornelius Blackthorne, alienist who lost his sanity investigating this case. Brave readers, prepare yourselves to discover truths that have disturbed investigators for generations. For years, whispered rumors in medical corridors spoke of experiments that transformed innocent slaves into living nightmares. What we discovered transcends the worst fears of human imagination. The case of Ezekiel, a 12-year-old slave from Savannah, Georgia, exposes a sinister conspiracy extending to the darkest circles of experimental medicine in 1841. This is not Gothic fiction. Every line has been verified through documents that should never have survived time. In 1841, while our society debated abolition, an organization known only as the Circle of Ocular Eternity conducted experiments that transformed innocent childhoods into senescent nightmares. Ezekiel was chosen not by chance, but for characteristics that made him the perfect specimen for sick obsessions with visual manipulation. Terrifying transformation documented in daguerreotypes. Confidential documents obtained by our investigation reveal that Dr. Jeremiah Ashworth, the sinister mind behind the operation, had developed substances that forced human aging at impossible speeds through ocular manipulation. Ezekiel was subjected to procedures that transformed a radiant child into a bent elder in a matter of weeks. Medical daguerreotypes, preserved in archives that librarians keep locked under 7 keys, show demonic progression, gray hairs sprouting in the first week, deep wrinkles furrowing the childish face in the second, severe spinal curvature deforming posture in the third. At 12 chronological years, Ezekiel presented the biological appearance of a dying centenarian. Sinister circle financed by cursed families. Our investigation discovered that the circle received funding from industrial dynasties obsessed with achieving immortality through profane science. Each experiment cost fortunes, paid with the suffering of children transformed into guinea pigs for diabolic ambitions. The rituals conducted combined experimental medicine with medieval occultism. Ezekiel was kept in underground cells decorated with alchemical symbols, subjected to ceremonies that mixed medical procedures with Latin incantations that made blood freeze in veins. Corrupted authorities protect conspirators. Evidence reveals that municipal authorities, influential families, and corrupt members of the clergy were aware of the circle's sinister activities. Death records were falsified, families were silenced through dark threats, and any official investigation was systematically sabotaged by invisible forces. Dr. Morrison, medical examiner who later developed night terrors, secretly documented impossible anatomical discrepancies, infant skeletons with advanced arthritis, young organs with premature senile deterioration, brains with characteristic dementia plaques, physical evidence of temporal manipulation that defies scientific explanation. Nightmares haunt investigators to this day. Every person who investigated this case developed inexplicable psychological disturbances. Margaret Thornfield, the librarian who discovered the archives, began aging rapidly after reading the documents. Dr. Blackthorne developed paranoid obsession with his own age. Professor Crow refuses to look in mirrors since seeing Ezekiel's photographs. Cursed archives reveal demonic methodology. Our investigation led us to the State Medical Archives, where we discovered evidence of systematic tampering suggesting supernatural intervention. Pages torn with impossible surgical precision, stamps that changed color according to light, signatures that seemed to move when observed peripherally. The crucial discovery came through carbon copies that librarians swore they had destroyed decades ago. These documents appeared mysteriously organized on our research desk one morning, as if invisible forces wanted the truth about Ezekiel to be revealed. Ashworth's diaries written in color-changing ink. Dr. Jeremiah Ashworth kept records in ink that transformed according to ambient temperature, revealing hidden texts when handled. His annotations, written in archaic English mixed with alchemical symbols, describe procedures that defy both medicine and physics. Ezekiel was identified in the records as temporal specimen alpha, designation that reduced a living child to an object of temporal experimentation. The selection criteria were disturbingly specific: slaves with family history of exceptional longevity, all born during lunar eclipses, considered biologically temporal material. The chronological essence, developed by Ashworth, combined radioactive elements with glandular extracts from preserved corpses, creating a compound the scientist believed could accelerate temporal flow in living organisms. Injections were administered directly to the spinal cord during nocturnal ceremonies. Photographs that haunt whoever observes them. Photographic series attached to reports documents transformation that haunts anyone who dares look at the images for more than a few seconds. Initial photographs show Ezekiel as a radiant child with innocent smile. Subsequent images record deterioration that seems to continue even after the photographer's death. First week, hair begins to whiten as if time accelerated only in them. Second week, wrinkles appear, forming patterns reminiscent of maps of places that don't exist. Third week, eyes develop cataracts that reflect images of people who have already died. Fourth week, Ezekiel presents appearance of elder who lived centuries of suffering. Most disturbing aspect was that the child's mind remained intact within the artificially aged body. Psychological records document Ezekiel crying for his mother with the broken voice of a centenarian, creating existential contradiction that tormented even the most hardened executors. National Network of Haunted Laboratories. Intercepted correspondence reveals that Ashworth did not operate in isolation. The Circle maintained a network of collaborators in at least 8 states, all conducting variations of the same experiments in laboratories that were later abandoned due to inexplicable manifestations. Each laboratory received funding from local industrial groups, creating a national conspiracy of child exploitation disguised as revolutionary temporal research. Total number of victims may reach hundreds of children, all sacrificed at the altar of scientific ambition corrupted by obsession with immortality. Financial records show that each experiment cost fortunes provided by families who subsequently suffered inexplicable generational curses, premature deaths, accelerated aging, early dementia. As if participation in the conspiracy brought temporal retribution. Underground facilities where time behaves strangely. Ezekiel was kept in an underground complex built 3 floors below the main hospital. Modern visitors report that clocks stop working at the location, hair temporarily grays after prolonged stay, and mirrors reflect aged versions of whoever observes them. Environment combined medical equipment with alchemical symbols engraved on copper plates that oxidize and restore cyclically. Temperature fluctuates independently of heating systems, and there are reports of whispers in dead languages echoing during new moon nights. Temporal transfer of vital essence, theory that haunts science. Technical documents reveal that experiments with Ezekiel were part of a much more sinister and comprehensive project. The Circle had developed a pseudoscientific theory called temporal transfer of vital essence, combining experimental medicine with occultism in ways that defy rational understanding. Central hypothesis suggested that human aging process could be extracted from one person and concentrated into substances administrable to others through specific rituals conducted during medical procedures. Ashworth believed he was distilling decades into youth elixirs. Underground laboratory where time behaves abnormally. Ezekiel was kept in a specially constructed cell where physical laws seemed altered. Clocks functioned at different speeds depending on location in the room, plants grew and died in accelerated cycles, and photographs revealed that images aged independently of photographed subjects. Environment combined state-of-the-art medical equipment with alchemical symbols that glowed with their own phosphorescence during experiments. Temperature was controlled not by thermostats, but by lunar phases, and illumination provided by candles made with substances that made shadows move against light direction. During weekly rituals, Ezekiel was positioned at center of circle engraved in floor while Ashworth and assistants recited incantations that made air vibrate with frequencies causing temporal disorientation. Simultaneously, Child was subjected to procedures including spinal fluid drainage and radioactive substance injections. Development of impossible temporal capabilities. Records document that Ezekiel developed abilities defying temporal physics during experiments. Ashworth observed episodes where Child demonstrated knowledge of future events, spoke about people who would be born decades later, and showed understanding of technologies that didn't exist. Most disturbing were recorded temporal projections. Ezekiel began describing his own life at different ages simultaneously, as if he existed in multiple timelines. Ashworth interpreted manifestations as evidence that experiments were expanding the specimen's temporal perception. Existential suffering documented in psychological reports. Medical photographs show Ezekiel simultaneously developing physical characteristics of multiple ages, gray hair with baby teeth, deep wrinkles with infant bone structure, advanced cataracts with juvenile curiosity in eyes. It was biological contradiction that transformed existence into constant temporal nightmare. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, nurse who later developed selective amnesia about the period, wrote in diary, "Every night I hear Ezekiel crying in the basement. These aren't a child's tears nor elder's moans, but laments of someone existing in all times simultaneously." Temporal culmination ritual, final cursed ceremony. Experiments reached climax during ceremony Ashworth called temporal culmination ritual. During procedure extending over 3 consecutive nights, Ezekiel was subjected to final process, complete extraction of what scientists believed to be concentrated temporal essence. Objective was collecting substance Ashworth theorized contained decades of vital experience temporally compressed. This essence would be refined and administered to circles paying members as elixir promising not just longevity, but control over personal temporal flow. Final medical records of Ezekiel are too disturbing for complete description. Child, at 12 chronological years, presented characteristics of dying centenarian, but maintained consciousness existing simultaneously in multiple ages until final moment. Supernatural consequences haunt participants. Professor Edmund Crowe, specialist in historical secret societies, developed disturbing theory. The circle of ocular eternity wasn't just manipulating biology, it was altering local temporal structure. Experiments may have created anomaly continuing to affect anyone investigating the case. Evidence of this theory: every investigator who studied Ezekiel's archives developed symptoms of temporary accelerated aging, nightmares involving multiple versions of themselves, and distorted perception of time passage. As if knowledge of case caused temporal contamination. Haunted survivors break decades of terrified silence. Our investigation managed to locate 3 survivors who witnessed 1841 events, all developed psychological disturbances persisting decades later. Their accounts, collected in interviews that had to be interrupted multiple times due to panic episodes, revealed details no official document recorded. Eleanor Whitmore, nurse who aged prematurely. Eleanor Whitmore, now with centenarian appearance at 73 years, was young trainee during experiment period. She received us only after presenting specific credentials, and kept all windows closed during interview, claiming daylight makes her remember what she saw. "I was only 16 years old," Eleanor recalled with voice oscillating between juvenile and elder timbre, but immediately noticed something was altering time in hospital. There were corridors where clocks functioned differently, sounds of cries seeming to come from past and future simultaneously. Eleanor was only person outside Ashworth's team who directly witnessed Ezekiel during temporal transformation. One night, working beyond schedule, she accidentally witnessed ritual through basement window and was never the same. What I saw changed not just my life, but my perception of time, she continued, hands trembling with rhythm not corresponding to chronological age. Hooded men, candles burning with flames moving against wind, and in center a child existing in multiple ages simultaneously. Thomas Morrison, son of cursed medical examiner. Thomas Morrison, 85 years old appearing 50, inherited not just his father's secret notes, but also curse affecting family temporal perception. Clocks in his house function at different speeds, and old photographs show him aging at inconsistent rhythm. My father knew experiments were altering local temporal structure, Thomas explained during interview lasting simultaneously 2 hours and 6 hours depending on clock consulted. He found children's bodies with impossible temporal characteristics. Dr. Morrison had secretly photographed victims, including Ezekiel. Images show contradictions persisting decades later, when observed quickly, show normal child, when contemplated longer, reveal elder, when photographed again, appear different with each revelation. My father suspected Ashworth had discovered how to manipulate biological time, Thomas added. Found evidence that cells aged independently of body, as if each part existed in different timeline. Sarah Caldwell, survivor with fragmented temporal memories. Most devastating testimony came from Sarah Caldwell, 88 chronological years appearing different ages depending on lighting. At 9 years old, was selected for program but managed escape before final procedures, though not without permanent temporal consequences. Sarah still exhibits physical anomalies, hair alternating colors according to seasons, scars appearing and disappearing, and mirror reflection showing versions of different ages. Her memories exist simultaneously in multiple timelines. They kept us in cells where time functioned strangely, Sarah recalled in presence of grandson, who observed uneasily how her appearance changed during conversation. There were other children, maybe 10 or 12. Ezekiel was in adjacent cell, and I heard not just his current cries, but echoes of cries from all ages he would experience. Sarah described rituals where children were forced to participate in ceremonies mixing medicine with temporal manipulation. White-coated men chose different child each night. When they took Ezekiel, he returned existing in multiple times simultaneously. Final moments of Ezekiel, fragmented temporal existence. Sarah's most disturbing description involves Ezekiel's final moments. He had become something defying description, child, adolescent, adult and elder existing in same body. One night I heard not just screams from his cell, but temporal echoes of all his life moments happening simultaneously. Dr. Margaret Thornfield, who interviewed Sarah decades later using regressive hypnosis, confirmed authenticity through details coinciding with never-published documents. Sarah's memories show temporal fragmentation persisting today, she literally remembers the future. Temporal curse pursues investigators. All testimonies converge, investigating Ezekiel's case causes temporal contamination in researchers. Every person studying archives develops similar symptoms, distorted time perception, irregular aging, memories of events they didn't live. It wasn't just medical experiment, concluded Eleanor Whitmore, whose appearance changed visibly during our interview. It was rupture in temporal structure continuing to affect anyone approaching truth about what they did to that child. Temporal curse remains active, investigation ends in terror. Our 2-year investigation revealed truths that not only shook our sanity, but altered our fundamental perception of temporal reality. The Circle of Ocular Eternity didn't just conduct experiments, created anomaly persisting to haunt anyone daring to investigate Ezekiel's case. Dr. Jeremiah Ashworth never faced earthly justice. Records suggest he may have discovered how to prolong existence indefinitely through temporal manipulation, possibly existing today at impossible age. Some investigators report sightings of man matching his description, always appearing exact same age. Ezekiel, existence transcending death. Officially, Ezekiel died in 1841. Unofficially, Multiple witnesses report manifestations suggesting he may exist simultaneously in multiple timelines. Visitors to old hospital site describe encounters with child resembling Ezekiel, always asking, "What age do you think I am?" Site remains haunted by temporal anomaly. Today, ruins of Savannah Hospital are avoided by local residents reporting inexplicable phenomena, clocks functioning at different speeds, shadows moving against sun direction, and whispers of voices speaking about ages that make no sense. Dr. Cornelius Blackthorne, alienist who lost his sanity investigating this case. Final warning, this investigation ends here for personal sanity reasons. Remaining archives will be permanently sealed. We recommend readers avoid investigating this case, as knowledge may cause irreversible temporal contamination. Temporal anomaly detected. Since beginning this investigation, channel statistics behave strangely, views oscillate, comments appear and disappear, likes vary independently of real interactions. If you don't like immediately, may never find content about documented temporal anomalies again. Like before it's too late, in any timeline.